Hey, what's going on, everyone? Back with another knife overview. Today, I'm very excited to do an overview on the Sangin Knives Corsair. This is going to be the Plankowner edition. Have a lot to say about this knife, and it was kind of everybody was wondering what it would look like, how it would drop, how it would do, how it would sell. All 100 of these sold out in about 7 minutes. So, that's actually pretty impressive. Before I get started, huge shout out to my buddy Wes for letting me borrow this. I didn't end up getting one on the drop, but, super appreciative of him for trusting me with this very valuable fixed blade knife. As I mentioned earlier, I do have a lot to say about this blade, and the way this video is going to be broken down, I'm going to kind of go through the background, so how this drop happened, how this knife got here, and then we're going to get into the stats as far as I understand them. Again, it's hard to find stats on this knife online, but I'll give you a good ballpark of size comparisons, etc. Then I'm going to give my impressions of it, and then I will, give my final thoughts on this knife. Like any hypebeast drop, leading up to it, there's just breadcrumbs of info about this knife, and this is honestly my favorite piece of hypebeast gear ever. It's kind of like Sangin Knives. They pulsed in with DEFCON, sup def, half-face blades, trash tactics, forward observations, kind of for best practices on doing a hype drop, and Sangin was like, bet, we're gonna do all of them. Before this knife dropped, there was a process to be quote-unquote accepted to Sangin Knives. You signed up for it, you had to kind of put in your credentials, like, hey, this is what I'm into, these are my hobbies, this is what I do professionally, and then you were accepted via link to Sangin Knives. It was honestly kind of cute to see people on Facebook, so I was a part of like the group leading up to this, and people just like speculating on whether or not they'd be accepted to even have a shot at the opportunity to buy one. It was kind of sad at the same time to see like the lack in confidence of everybody. They're like, oh, like I'm not a cool guy, I probably won't get accepted, whatever. To my knowledge, I didn't hear about anybody that applied that didn't get accepted, but it was kind of funny to see that, like, I don't know, like psychological impacts of, applying to something and being like, I'm not good enough to get in. Like, hopefully everybody that wanted to get in got in. It should also be mentioned that the first drop for Sangin Knives was actually a t-shirt, and there's a little bit of a hiccup there that honestly it rubbed me the wrong way. We were told that we'd have 2 hours to get in on the drop, which again was a t-shirt that cost $55, I think, before tax and shipping, so very expensive t-shirt. Said we had 2 hours to get it, but it was gone in, I think it was about 27 minutes. Again, I don't remember the exact thing. It was less than a half hour that, these t-shirts were on the site. I don't know. And all told, like, again, I was accepted. I have an account with Sangin Knives, but I needed another t-shirt. Like, I needed a hole in my head, so I didn't end up jumping on it when I saw the price, to be honest. Quickly or soon thereafter, there were rumblings about the t-shirt kind of being the key for early release of this knife, and I was like, there's no way they're gonna do that. Like, you would definitely want to put that out first, right? And then especially if there's a hiccup in the drop where people think they have 2 hours to kind of like mull it over if they like the t-shirt, when that wasn't true. So kind of a bad look, I thought, but then it did come out that, yep, if you bought the t-shirt, you were going to have early release or early access to the Plankowner knife that you see before. All right, so fast forward a few days or weeks later. Again, I don't have the timeline exactly, but the first knife dropped. It was serialized out of 100. This version or style of the Corsair is never going to be made again. And the price, you may be asking, $750 without tax or shipping. Definitely a stout price for the first drop of a company that looks like this. For all intents and purposes, like, you have to question the usefulness of this knife. To me, it kind of looks like it belongs on, some like 12-year-old's like soccer trophy shelf or whatever. I mean, it's super ostentatious, gaudy, artsy, which I know that was the aim of it, but it was very interesting for, me, and being very familiar with Sangin instruments, that this was the first knife they went with, that was the price, whatever. But if you did get your hands on one of the first 100, you are now a plank owner and have that status for all future Sangin knife drops. So you're going to have early access, and I am actually a Sangin Instruments, so the watches. I'm a plank owner for that, and yeah, you get early access to any new models of watches that come out. So similarly, if you got this one, you have early access to any new knives that come out. All right, so moving right along, I want to do a few quick comparisons here. So I have the Sangin Knives Corsair as compared to a Chris Reeve large Sebenza 31. It looks like that. And I also brought out a Strider SMF. Looks like that. Again, it's a very big fixed blade. And then I also, as far as fixed blades go, brought out my RMJ Jack Draw. Looks like that. And then, sorry, I gotta resheath these things so I don't cut myself. And then finally, a half-face blades. That was a little sawdust from sawing. Half-face blades Disaster Junior. So very large knife. Yeah, again, the stats for this knife aren't available, so kind of in classic hypebeast fashion, it's not like Chris Reeve where you can look up stats for a knife. It's not readily available, but I did bust out a tape measure. Overall, it's a hair under 9 inches. It features a 4-inch cutting blade and then a 4.5-inch blade overall. The steel is going to be M4, full tang. This thing is really thick. It weighs 6,000 pounds. Just kidding, but it has to be 12 ounces. I'm pretty good at knowing that weight and comparing this to a can of beer. It was pretty much spot on. I don't have the exact weight though. This version features brass handles, very prominent, not very discreet. It feels like the darker part here is kind of ebony. I'm not sure of the material, but I'm gonna call it ebony on the handle, so ebony inlays. Going right into the packaging. Sorry, I just want to find a good place to put this thing so I don't damage it. Looking at the packaging, so it does come with a full-size Pelican case, but it is like a knockoff Pelican. It's not a real one. It's huge. I can't really fit it into the frame that well, so you'll just have to trust me. But again, we have closed cell foam here, really nice branding, Sangin Knives. Upstairs, there's a little home for the blade, and then here's going to be the, your serialized card. So this one, sorry, there's fingerprints all over it, but model Corsair, steel type, M4, handle, brass, and ebony. Whoa, I just solved my own. Wow, that's great. All right, so it is an ebony handle. Cool, that's awesome. Inspected by Jacob Cervantes. So that's going to be the owner of Sangin Knives and Sangin Instruments, and the serial number on this one is 68. That's really cool. It's a nice like die cut card. Looks very professional. Very high quality. Going downstairs in the case, I'm going to move the case out of the way here. Again, more branding there. You get the wings. This is the sheath that it comes with. I thought that it was kind of interesting. I have not seen a sheath that has been felt lined on the outside, to be honest with you, but it's a Kydex sheath. It has felt lining on the outside, and then I'll post a picture. They actually just put little two like sticky pieces of felt in the inside that they were definitely just like put there by hand. It looks like they just had like a roll of it. They cut it, put it in there to protect the actual finish on the blade. But I also I don't know, it's kind of tough. So you get that, and then you also get this, this is the other part of the clip, so that you can, conceivably hook it onto a belt or scout carry it depending on how you want to. This is going to be leather. Again, it's engraved there. I don't know who would carry this knife. I've not put it in the sheath at all, but I don't know. It's pretty simple, utilitarian. This to me is I don't know. It's interesting. I've never seen a felt lined on the outside with little strips on the inside. I also don't know who's going to be carrying this thing, but that's the packaging that it comes with. All right, so now getting into my impressions of the Sangin Knives Corsair. I have to tell you, I don't have the background info on this knife. This is all my perception, my own kind of thoughts on it. So please don't, I'm not trying to drag anybody with this. This is honestly just my honest impression of this knife. Until now, I've definitely thought of anything Sangin to be completely operator friendly, salt of the earth, function over form, utilitarian, extremely well thought out and purposeful. This kind of, it reminds me of like an Arabian Nights like cosplay, like literal paperweight, and it kind of confuses me for a first drop. Unless I think about this blade as a really, really valuable status piece or key to unlocking the Sangin Knives Plankowner Vault. If you ever show up with this like on your kit at the range, whatever, I think it would be tough. Like your boys would definitely come after you for carrying it because it is just so ostentatious. I mean, just look at it. I don't think like anyone would really carry this though because it is so heavy. As I said, it's 6,000 pounds, and it's super expensive. I kind of this was a little bit in realizing, okay, so Sangin Knives, their first drop, they wanted to put out an art piece that would be a collector's item, whatever, but it is kind of a hard pill to swallow, especially for a first drop. The Sangin that I know made quality timepieces that were, attainable to junior members of our armed forces, and this knife coming in at $750 is definitely kind of getting away from that a little bit. All right, I'm going to kind of blast through the rest of my impressions. As far as blade shape goes, it's very simple, classic. The bevel is nicely done, but I did notice on the show side down here by the heel, it's a lot more dull than the rest of the blade. As I said before, thick, full tang. The brass definitely adds weight to it, these brass inlays, but even naked, there's no getting around that this is just a very large chunk of M4 steel, which is really nice to see. I would say the grip, though, is very slippery, just due to the nature of materials. There's not much in the way of, like, friction. If your hands were wet or sweaty, this would be a tough knife to hold onto, certainly. These brass pins here that kind of hold the handles on are hollow, which I think is kind of like... It's a little bit confusing just based on my experience with fixed blade knives at this price point. It almost looks like some sort of like embellishment maybe fell out. Like, I don't know, like did you all put like have some like black rhino tusk or, some other sort of like exotic thing that was in here and fell out? I feel like at this point, like it would be cool to have some sort of like special material in there just because we've already come this far. Like what's adding that? Like I think, I don't know, like my observation of this knife, it almost looks like those pins like we're missing some sort of material there or embellishment. And then honestly the most signature part of this knife, or the part that like caught my eye, is going to be this positive jimping up here, which is made of brass. Normally jimping works because you remove material from the blade, which creates like friction for your thumb. Sangin decided to remove that material, but they replaced it with something slipperier, which is brass. If you don't believe me, like I was thinking about it, I was like, hey, how did ancient people move heavy objects? Rollers. This jimping is literally a roller for your thumb. The only saving grace is the peak on the spine after the jimping, and I don't know. I just wonder, what they actually use to set these brass pieces in there, and I wonder if they're gonna fall out. Like, I don't know, but time will tell. But very interesting signature look on this blade. I have not seen that before as far as jimping goes. All right, and that concludes my overview of the Sangin Knives Corsair Plankowner Edition. It may seem like I don't like this knife, but it's only because I don't understand the purpose. I think it would be more palatable for Sangin to say, first 100 people to spend $750 will get plank owner status, and as a thank you, this knife. For the first knife, with the background and pedigree of the owner, Jake, I definitely would have liked to see a purposeful blade at a better price point. A fixed blade over $500 at that point, or this point, you really are only paying for exotic embellishments, not cutting prowess, and you kind of leave your tried and true fan base on the bench in a way, because I think people saw this as the first drop, and that more traditional market that you put out items to, I think they were confused with it, because I'm one of those people and I'm confused. I think the whole project so far, being Sangin Knives, it just kind of makes me uneasy. If this was a special edition release in a year or two after, laying a solid foundation, okay, I think that would make sense. But for a maiden voyage, I just don't think this is the best look. But that said, since Sangin sold all these out in about 7 minutes, they grossed $75,000. So maybe I'm just an idiot. Maybe I don't get it. But yeah, I think it's kind of tough for a first run. I think like if you have more money than you know what to do with, scoop one of these up on the secondary. But please remember, like this is one of the main things I want to foot stomp with this. Like this is not for plank owner status. If you bought into this knife for plank owner status, I get it. That's a great look. But the people that are listing these like for sale, $100 over MSRP, before you buy one of those, realize this is not like a bare bond knife, right? Like if you own this knife, that does not mean you're a plank owner. It's whoever's email is attached to buying this knife that's a plank owner. So I think conceivably these on the secondary market should be half price, if that, because you're only getting this knife. You are not getting the benefit of spending the money on this, which is plank owner status for the rest of, for the rest of the time Sangin Knives is around. So please just keep that in mind. I really do wish that I had more nice things to say about it, but honestly, it's like hard to take this looking knife with these materials at this price point seriously on an everyday carry channel. Like I really do try to bring content based on things that people will use, and I don't think this is going to be a knife that people will use. Like I think it is a cool status piece, so to speak. It would probably look really awesome on a shelf, whatever, and if you are the original buyer, I think it's a good look. But buying this on the secondary, I don't think that it's the way to go. So that concludes my overview of the Sangin Knives Corsair. I'm hoping to get a couple more Sangin knives once they release more, to kind of see what the utilitarian flavor is, realizing that this is an art piece. So again, huge shout out to my buddy Wes for letting me borrow this. I'm gonna get it back in the mail to him today. But yeah, appreciate you all tuning in, and we will see you next time.